sit down. We're going to have time to chat later, but I wanted to introduce my friend Scott Moore. Scott has been professor at the Ross School of Business for over 20 years, and I think this is probably impossible because you can't be much over 40, but wasn't that it? You were the young, no, he wasn't the youngest guy in the world. But he got his master's at Georgia Tech, so he's here from the South, and originally from the South. Sorry. Okay. And then MBA at Wharton, and PhD at Wharton, and has been an associate professor. Assistant, was that, I get right, associate professor.
Assistant and associate.
Okay, assistant and an associate professor at the Ross School of Business, and has been very prime in developing the undergraduate program for the BBA, which is one of the most successful programs at Michigan. Very competitive. At first, it was a 2-year program, and I think just last year,
It's like 5 years, 6 years now.
That's 4-year program. Okay.
3 and 4 year program.
Okay. And he'll tell you about how difficult it is to get into it. So I think the class is approximately 100. Did you accept, Scott?
Yeah, sort of.
Sort of, okay.
There's lots of details.
Thousands of applicants. So, Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you talk to the audience here about your program.
Great. Thank you, Rob. And thanks for the opportunity. So I've been here for all of Joe White's 10 years dean, that was 10 years, and then Bob Dolan's tenure for 10 years, and now we have Allison Davis Blake. She just started last year. Where am I from? So Kansas, Chicago, Memphis, Atlanta, South Carolina, North Carolina, Philly, and here now for 20 or so years. I worked at IBM when the PC was introduced back in the day. I helped sell electronic typewriters. What else? Then I worked for a small real estate development firm, MBA, fired people, and my wife threatened when I fired them, you know, all the usual sort of stuff. Went back, got a PhD because I always wanted to teach. I taught my high school calculus class when the teacher was out for a couple weeks because we had some work to do. So, and the substitute didn't know what she was doing, so she asked for help, and I gave it. So I've taught forever. It's been my life. And so today, so I was head of the program, BBA program, for 7 years, and that really defined a lot of what I've done at school. And for the last year, I've been chair of the Business Information Technology Department. But now that the dean has disbanded that department, you don't have to give me an answer as to why that would be. I'm just going to go back and be a professor again. So enough about me. What do you think about me? What I'm going to do today is talk about this. What do we do to develop undergraduate students? And then what are you looking for? So I wanted to be able to have a conversation about what we do and then where we're sort of missing the beat. I have a lot of information up here. I'm pretty active on Twitter. I have a blog on education technology and business. I'm going to have a bunch of stuff on YouTube in the fall. I'll talk to you about that later. And I'll be glad to talk to you about any of this after this, right? So, here's our pipeline. We take applicants. So, Rob said, you know, how many students do you have? So we get 2,500 applicants out of high school. And Michigan accepts about 1,200 of them. And then we read those applications, accept about 200, and we get about 100. We're competing with Princeton, Wharton, Yale, stuff like that. We're looking for smart doers. I don't care if they're smart, if they sit in the back of the class and don't say anything. I want them to be involved and be active in putting themselves out there. So they end up being pretty dadgum smart and well, they measure well. So 1450 SAT is the average for the 200 that we accept. 33 ACT, 4.0 GPA in high school. So, you know, that was like the worst part of the job, getting a call from a major donor, a significant person in the state, someone who's just really important to us. I have a really great kid, 1350 SAT, 30 ACT, president of senior class, got a 3.8, you know, got into Princeton, Harvard, Yale, didn't get into Ross. Why? Well, they're less selective than we are. It was just not fun. It was just not fun. So then what we have, thank God for this, is we also then have admission of freshmen into sophomore year. So they'd be at Michigan for a year, establish that they could be a good college student. And then we get 1,100 applicants. We'd accept 350. So it was a third, and then pretty much all of them would come. And they had a 3.6 GPA in college, so and they always have leadership positions. We don't care if they're great in class. We need to see that they were in high school, president of senior class, on the football team, on a cheerleading squad, started up their own company. You usually have 2 to 4 students per year who had a $250,000 company in high school. You know, at that point, I just say, good luck. I hope I don't screw you up. You know, because if you're doing that in high school, you know, more power to you. So, great kids, just love them. Okay, so at this point, it's like, what do you do with them? And that's what I'm going to talk about here. But really, in another slide. But the idea here is we look for their classroom experience, but also their Ross activities, but also their broader U of M activities. It's all part of a whole. They're going to be Michigan graduates for the rest of their life, and so we want to make sure that they take advantage of that whole strength. The best part of Ross, besides Len, and I mean that, the best part of Ross is the whole university. Everything that's there. I told them at orientation, if you can't find what you're interested in here, you have some really weird interests. That was, it's just, we have everything as far as I know, you know, so get out there and do stuff. That was cool. Graduates, they're analysts, consultants, about 50% of them go into finance, 25% go into consulting, get this right. Our major hiring companies is Citi, JP Morgan Chase, Accenture, Morgan Stanley, PwC, Target, American Express, Cisco, Deloitte, Google. 45% stay here in the Midwest, and that usually means maybe 60% of those Chicago, the other in Detroit area, 35% in the Northeast, Wall Street. 12% manufacturing overall. 65K starting salary is the usual, sort of the average for them, plus signing bonus, plus relocation. You know, it's not a bad deal. Not a bad deal, but MBAs are like around 120. So I think they're better students, smarter, more motivated, more pliable. So that's our graduates. So they're good kids. They get out there and do things, and they become our best alumni. So the question is, what do we do for them? What do we do? So basic business skills, some technology stuff, and I'm going to talk about where we're going with that later. And then socially, what does that mean? So basic business, nothing fancy here. Nothing fancy, just the usual management organizations or leadership, teamwork stuff, accounting, stats, econ, finance, marketing, information technology. Just, you know, what you would hope you would see on that list. Technology, again, sort of the basics. All the Microsoft Office stuff, all the Google stuff, Facebook, all the social sort of the social stuff. They're getting they're beginning, it's beginning to take off there. It was pretty dead a couple years ago, but they're really into it now, and it's everywhere. If faculty don't stay on top of that, we can get sideswiped there. So I'll talk about that a little bit. And then socially, by that I mean teamwork, working in groups, leadership, public speaking, writing. This is where we're probably best. Everything that the students, every class students take, basically they have some kind of group project. So they're always working in teams. And our students, our graduates, are demonstrably better than other students from other schools at working in groups, just because of the crucible that we put them in. Public speaking, that's another one of their strengths, I think, by the time they graduate. And then writing. We could all be better at writing, so could they, but we have pretty focused on short business writing experience, which is what they're not used to. They're used to writing the flowery long sentences. No, we don't care. Get down to noun, verb, period. Really, we don't like all this adjectives. What the heck? Just noun and verb. So, we try to look at it holistically in terms of making sure that they're then out there with their extracurriculars, that they're doing stuff, that they have a story to tell to the hiring company, whoever it might be, that they've done something. Yes, they took some great classes from amazing professors, but who didn't? At some point, think they took an amazing class from an amazing professor. Tell me what you've done. Tell me what you've done. How have you accomplished it? Okay. So what makes us different? So again, the focus on the teamwork, team building activities. They have classes, they have workshops, they have seminars, they have opportunities to develop what I call small L leadership, because they're not at the big L leadership, CXO, CFO, CEO level. They're kids, right? So it's how do you lead yourself? How do you lead small teams? How do you get people to listen to you? Okay, so that's what I mean by leadership. Recently, 3 years ago, the dean and I at that time developed an intro to business class. We looked at what was out there and for intro to business classes, and they were horrible. They were boring. They assumed the students were stupid. Just because they were young, they must not know anything. So there'll be simplification. So we created an intro to business class from whole cloth. We wrote 30 cases or so. It was ridiculous. We wrote them as we used them. We wrote from December to March and used them from January to April. So we sort of constructed the class as we went. The idea was that, okay, a Harvard case is 20 pages and it uses all these technical terms. Well, they don't know the technical terms, but they can do the analysis. So write the cases, current cases, so Circuit City, McDonald's is probably our oldest case, and that was from around 2000. I did Toyota, their recent problems, Dell, their recent problems, Snapple, they had some serious issues recently. We tended to write a lot about stress. We used public sources to write these cases, so we could write about problems. We didn't use like Harvard, where I'd go interview the people at the company, because what are they going to tell you? We're amazing. All the great things we've done. No, we write about the stuff that we see in the press where they had troubles, and then we get them to think about that. This class is very different because it challenges the students to talk in class. A third of their grade was on participation, where I listened to everything they said, and at the end of every class I graded them on their, did they respond to the person who talked to them before, or did they ignore them? Did they use evidence in what they talked about? Did they use the frameworks that we talk about in business that we've developed to them? So did they make sense? Did they make a good argument? If I pushed back, did they support themselves, or was there nothing behind what they said? They're used to saying, the answer is 42, and then putting their hand down and call that good. But this, for the first time in their life, we'd have 80, 60, 70 people in the class, and I wanted them to have a conversation. They'd never talked to people like this before. You're all sort of your dad, you're your mom, and I don't talk to you like this, you know, where we actually have a conversation, and I'm supposed to bring up evidence and use frameworks and all this stuff. No, I don't talk about business. So now I'm supposed to talk to you as if I'm an adult and you're an adult, and then we can have some sort of interchange. Okay, so this is very different for them. And then the writing is the same way. Short articles to analysis, and then a final exam. So here's their final exam. This is it. So they have 4 hours. I saw this cover story in Car magazine, a British auto magazine, last, I think it was July, and there's this huge uproar. So I thought it was perfect for the class. So the idea is Aston Martin has this car that they sell. You know, Aston Martin. Okay, so what do you think? Beautiful, sensual, fast, amazingly luxurious cars. And here they have a Toyota IQ city car. It can go 0 to 60 in about 3 days. And what they do is they get the Toyota IQ sent to them without any interior from Toyota, and then they paint it and input stuff in the interior, sell it for generally about $50,000 to $70,000. But it's a Toyota. It's the same engine. It's just the same car. It just has a really nice interior. So, question one, and then they have special ones of these Aston Martin Signets, where they charge even more money. Like one of them's the special white or the special black, and guess what they are? They're white or they're black. But for that privilege, you have to pay an additional about $15,000. So I asked them. So I get 4 hours. The questions are on that other sheet. That single page. It's write about, does this make sense? Has Aston Martin been doing well? Why hasn't it been making sense? Why does it make sense? Should they stay in the city car market? Should they get out? Should they use a different strategy? Why or why not? And it can't just say, you know, yes. You know, they have to tell me in 3 to 4 pages why. Why? So I encourage you to read that, because it was a 6-page article in Car about the pros and cons about what they should do, and the students love this kind of stuff because they're coming into this class, they're not used to thinking about this kind of thing. They're used to thinking about a marketing problem. They're used to thinking about a finance problem. They're used to thinking about a labeling problem. And this is a business problem. So, what do you think? Just that. Just what I've told you. With the Aston Martin, with this Signet, how do you begin to think about this? Yes? I'm putting you on this. How do you begin to think about this? When I said Toyota IQ, they relabel it as an Aston Martin Signet. What do you think? Crosses your mind first, and no fair is reviewed. Scam crosses your mind. Yeah, why?
You're taking advantage of the brand name to take an inferior product and selling it as a superior product.
Okay, so then is that, but if they could make some money off it?
I think that there's some value in the fact that pursuing business ethics is more valuable.
So you think that might be a problem long-term, short-term? Is that going to be a long-term or short-term problem, or do you think, what if they make money?
Is business ethics a long-term?
Do you think that customers will notice?
Well, now they will, because this article came out.
Wow, no, that's me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's me.
I don't know, maybe going for targeting the social climbing market.
I mean, but here I am, I have 6 cars in my garage.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking, I'm sorry, you said the Aston Martin, the the basic Toyota body.
It's-
Okay,
yep.
that was the very beginning of it. Just, piggybacking on what you said, it's obviously a branding issue here. If it ever comes out, it's gonna, my feeling is it's gonna hurt the Austin Martin.
It's not that it comes out, look at the picture, they're the same car, so everyone knows.
Well, everyone knows, but it's sort of like, when you had the poor man's Jaguar, right? What did that do to Jaguar, right? With a big block for him. Okay, so the idea is that Austin Martin has a certain clientele, a certain market that it goes for, and if it's found out that they've been not telling the truth, if you will, to their clients, it's going to hurt them dramatically.
Be real clear though, everyone knows.
At the front end.
Yeah, that this is the same car.
Oh, okay, they knew
It's
something that
just,
they.
this is not hidden from anybody. It's just, the inside, you can see from there, is totally different, but the outside of the drivetrain, exactly the same.
Isn't it akin to what Porsche did with that poor man's Porsche?
The 914.
The 914, that everyone tried to go up market, and then it sort of degraded the brand of the higher end too, because now everyone can have a Porsche, right?
Isn't that not a good thing?
Well, not for the people who want to drop the 60 grand on or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Now everyone could be James Bond, right?
It's kind of similar to the way Cadillac went and made a small Cadillac, and that didn't go over either. Yeah, it was something like that. But, that didn't work out either.
Cimarron, yes, lovely.
Violence.
Not in a million years. Not in a million years.
So why,
Yeah, right.
why do you have an ethical problem if it's a known?
No, actually, I misunderstood part of it.
I think
Until
it's gonna hurt
that last
the
question.
brand.
I thought this was being presented as an Aston Martin engineered product, and we just found out that it was.
Well, no,
That's why I thought that was, that's a good question. I think it's a different problem, that it's, you're diluting your brand. That's a bigger, long-term problem. There was a flirtation for a while of making a Jeep sedan.
Yeah.
And they did a bunch of market studies, and it doesn't really look like a Jeep, other than Germany, where they don't like Jeeps. Jeep has a particular cachet, a particular appearance, and if you lost that, you lost the marketing purpose.
I'm thinking conversion van.
Oh, you're thinking it feels like the same thing?
Well, it
Yeah.
sounds like it.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yes.
I was saying, instead of upgrading the city car market, you might be driving down.
Right, so you make a little bit of money on this, right? And then it's, okay, how about all those other cars that you sell for? Their next cheapest car is $170,000, and then they price up to, I think, 1.7 million. And now here's this car.
Get one of those.
Yeah, get one of those instead. So then you're talking between, it's like maybe up to 1,000 of these that they have to sell. The underlying motivation is the European car CO2 regulations. So how do they meet that? They have to really cut their emissions by 25%, increase their gas mileage. So there's this force on them, or else you have to pay fines. Well, pay the damn fines. That might be one thing. Or do something else. But, I was looking for the students to say, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We teach one of the main frameworks that we deal with is their what's called a business model. That's a technical term for us. That means their customer value proposition. What is it they bring to the market? What does Jeep bring to the market? It's not a sedan. It's not a sedan. Whatever it is, it's not a sedan. Aston Martin, it's this beautiful, sensual, smells like Britain. It just is. It's not a Toyota IQ. So CVP, customer value proposition. Target market, target customers, key processes, key resources, profit formula. How do they make money? How is it they make money? Well, it's probably not selling a cheap little city car. So, anyway, so that's we're getting them to think about that kind of problem, to present an argument. And I found from one year to the next, when we do the same case, we get different answers by the end, because a case doesn't have all the information in it. You know, it's just a case, it's words. I did my research. I can't put everything in there. Business people don't have all the information. So then they have to make assumptions. Well, if they make one assumption in class, it makes it go one way. And if they make a different assumption, it goes the other way. I'm looking for them to present their arguments, use evidence, use frameworks, use logic, you know, support what they have to say. So that's a big part of this class. And then we had them do a blog this last year. So at this BA201W2012.blogspot.com. And it turns out these kids are great at looking at current news articles, current news stories, and then applying the framework from the class and explaining it to a general business audience. We have like 20,000 views. It actually, there's some really good writing on there. Turns out they're great at business kind of writing, so it's fun to maintain. Yeah, action-based learning. This was something that we've done in an MBA program for 20 years. MAP, multidisciplinary action projects, and now at the PBA program, Chris went through what we call ALPS, action learning projects, whatever. Okay, so it's doing consulting projects with real companies at real time that they're interested in right now. And we did everything from work with green energy startups with 2 employees that have been around for 6 months, and they're looking for a market for their product, to Visteon, who's looking to go from number 3 to number 2 in some particular product in their worldwide market. They do market entry strategies. They do new product strategies. They help refine the problem. They help gather the data, do the analysis, come up with a recommendation, and then come up with an implementation plan. Oh my God, are you kidding? Usually in their project and in their schoolwork, it's, gosh, you need to look into this opportunity more. I was like, no. When I'm talking to a businessman and I tell them, this is what I think you should do, he wants to know what he should do. Who are the people who should work on these things at what times? What's a metric for success? How will they know they're going in the right direction? It's not just, gosh, this looks great. No. And this is something, again, they've never done before, where they're actually dealing with cold calling. I need this information. Well, find it. Find it. Go talk to somebody. Go do an interview. Do a survey. Get a call. Have them say no. Okay? Get a little information from them. Figure out where to go next. These are all brand new skills for them. Everything's always been, this is the case is the most complicated thing they've ever seen, because it's sort of messy. Well, this is way beyond that. It's, well, we don't have any data. Good luck. You know, well, we think the problem is this, but you're going to find out it's actually something else. How do we get them from being that student who's never done this to actually doing something? We have a big support network in place. We have team coaches. We have about 8 seminars on building relationships. Jane Dutton, if you were here earlier in the year, she's one of the people who helps them out. We have other people who help them figure out how to scope a problem, how to work on teams, how to do project management, just generally sort of the whole bootstrap. Good luck. And then I help them sort of throughout the whole project come up with a recommendation. Then they have to 30 to 100 page report plus a 45-minute presentation, so you don't have to read the report. Really how it works. Sorry, please tell you that. But that's the general. So, no technology at all, pure raw, sit in class and talk. This is get out with the community. And now this is a class I'm developing right now on, guess what, living and learning digitally. About how to find information on Google or elsewhere It's been around for a while. I have a website, howcanifindit.com. I taught it for a couple of years, and now it's been on hiatus and it's coming back, and I'm going to teach it mostly over video, mostly distant, even though I'm physically here. Because I figure the students should have that experience, because they're going to be doing that. Later. Going to try all sorts of different mechanisms. Technologies. I've always used technology in teaching before these two classes. That was the first time I'd ever not used PowerPoint, not used online exercises or whatever it might be. So YouTube, I recently found out, I did not know this until just a couple weeks ago, that when you put something on YouTube, you have three choices. It can be public, or it can be unlisted. So unless you give someone the address, no one can find it. So it can be out there for anyone to see, it's just they don't know it's there. And then it can also be private, so that only the people that you invite can see it. So you can still use the YouTube backend and make it available however you want to. And I found that to be quite intriguing. So that's how I'm going to post the videos, make some of them public, make some of them private, so they can see some information for advertising purposes, basically, and for others, just for the students enrolled in the class. Google Hangouts is also a great new technology. We're moving towards Google. We just adopted it, Google Apps for Education. And this is something where you can have, maybe you use Skype for conferencing calls, and you can have 4 people. With Google Hangouts, you can have 10 together, sharing the screen, and each one of you can talk differently. You can share documents. There's also Google Hangout, I think it's like broadcast or something like that, where you can have essentially an infinite number of people. You can have a subset, this 10, in the room with you, but then you can also have it being broadcast live and then saved for later display on YouTube. Okay, so very, very nice. Again, you don't want to do this yourself. If you can get the technology out there in the cloud so you don't have to manage it, that's always a good thing. Twitter, like I said, I'm using that for announcements, for letting my writing be known. The students, I have one student who is now as an intern working in social media for Under Armour. She has about 15,000 followers. Personally, I have no idea how she does this. She's taught me about Twitter. She's going to be a guest lecturer in my class next year that she's going to be taking. So I have no pride. What the heck? But she knows what she's doing. If you've ever seen a Twitter from a tweet from the Michigan ticket office or Michigan athletic department, that's her. She's been running that for the last couple of years. So Twitter, the students used to just a year ago not be on it. 6 months ago they started to do it, and now it's pretty common in their life. So if you want to reach them, Twitter is a great way to do it. Not email. You guys are horrible at email. It's just not part of their lives. Facebook, but they won't let you on Facebook. Are you kidding me? Be Facebook friends with a professor? No, not going to happen. So Twitter is sort of the next best thing that we can have. Dosery, I wanted to show you guys this, but I couldn't get my computer to work. So there's this tool called Dosery, where you can have the laptop be mirrored on here. So I can now do a presentation by controlling it here on my iPad. So I can see everything on here. I can write on the slides. I can go forward and back. I can record what I'm doing, record what I'm saying. A very nice tool. You don't have an iPad, get one and get with the program. Basically, the apps are amazing. Everything that you didn't even know you needed, like that, they have. And then you find out, it's like, oh my God, okay. Things like photosynth. Okay, photosynth. So I had certainly had panorama constructing cameras before, or applications, where you can take a picture, a bunch of them, and have it stitch it together. Well, with PhotoSynth, with your phone, or with this, you can essentially take a picture around the whole sphere, and it'll put it together, so you can then see everything in a 360 above and below and around dimension. So, PhotoSynth, S-Y-N-T-H, one word. Amazing! You can do it, so I could do it right now. I can do that in a class, and that's what I'm going to do this next year to help me remember who everyone is. You know, well, you don't have. I used to take a picture individually. Okay, now you smile. Now you smile. Now you smile. No, just don't move for very much. You know, and I go around and do this. So amazing. And then when I was in Vegas last week, at Hoover Dam, got a 360-degree view of that, including down. Just great. So there's these little things, and of course it was free. Whew! You know, so it wasn't. I used to have this kind of app on my Mac. Well, actually, I still do for $200. You know, so Dosery. This actually costs $30, and then there's site licenses for it, and it's ridiculously good. You can write. They have a pen that you can write on and put your hand down. That's a big deal. Put your hand down and write. Your handwriting is a lot better than if you suspend your hand up above it. And I don't know if you've ever written on a piece of paper. You usually put your hand down. Well, there's a reason for that, because you can't write very well. So, Dosery. I recommend that if you do any kind of presentation, that's freaking awesome. Okay, it's awesome. Lecture tools. There's these great setup that they have that's developed by another faculty at Michigan, Perry Sampson, who started Weather Underground. If you use that, started that a long time ago. And now he has lecture tools, which is for doing lecture. Clickers are a big deal that no one likes. Okay, clickers are a thing where every student in the class has a clicker, and then I ask questions. So, A, B, or C, which one do you think it is? Should you do these things? And then people click, whatever, and that's the kind of question you can ask at multiple choice. Well, with lecture tools, you can have them point at a map. You can have them write a response. You can have them use their cell phone. You can have them use their laptop. You can interact with it a whole bunch of different ways. And the more you can get them to use the technology in the classroom for class stuff, the less they'll be able to use it for other stuff and not listen to you. So if you can engage them with the technology and make them do class stuff instead of sitting over and looking down at the cell phone, pretending that no one notices, right? Because no one notices. What? When you're looking straight down, right? So I'm looking forward to using that. I maintain this blog where I talk about all these kind of issues as well, and I'll be talking about the development of this class. We've had C tools for a long time, this sort of very basic content management system, but this open source CMSs, who in here knows anything about a CMS? Just if I say that. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so they were crappy 5 years ago. They're a lot better now, and they're open source and they're getting better all the time. If you're not looking at this kind of tool for constructing your website, you should be. It's just great. And now I say production facility. That's my basement. I put together a production facility essentially for making these videos in my basement. It's so cheap these days. It's just ridiculously cheap. You can use off-the-shelf kind of tools, and you can put it together professionally, even though my initial efforts are going to look, well, less than professional. But I'm sure that there's certain skills that it takes, but you're not being held back by the technology in any way. It's all there and it's cheap. It's all there. So the idea for the class is to get them, it's to both get them to use technology to learn and to learn about the sort of academics, the right way to look for information, which is a big part of their job. So that's going to be that. Right? So, now, what I need to know from you is I've had all these assumptions about what development, business development, leadership development is all about, and what we have been working on to try to make them better at. But I'd like to hear from you. Anything more I can tell you about Ross? What are you looking for in your new hires? And then also, when you hire people who aren't in business school, but they're helping you in your business, what do you do? How do you get them going? How do you get them to be able to speak your language, to think about problems in ways that you find useful? Okay, so, questions, comments, delusions, jokes, anything, yeah?
That long last slide, a lot of information I found really useful. You know, the list of digital technologies.
Yeah.
And someone who had all those skills, someone but I wouldn't necessarily hire them in the kind of business position someone's getting a business school on. I kind of think of those as what I wish my IT researchers could raise. And I'm not sure that your students are looking for IT positions.
They're definitely not looking for IT positions. They're just looking to use IT, and they just do use IT. They can't help it.
I guess part of the question is, if someone's sending me a resume for a market management position, someone who's getting started, wants to get into that department, and I see all those skills, I might think, gosh, those skills would be valuable in my company, but not for the position I'm hiring for. I'm not sure how to.
They're generally not. This isn't even the kind of stuff that they would put out there on their resume. This would just be how they live their life. Because that's just what they do. They use YouTube for everything. They use Twitter for everything. They use Facebook. They use Google to find information. They can do it better than anyone else. They know about Hakia. They know about every search engine that they need to know. Okay,
You're describing the person. I'm the hiring manager. I'm the president of the company. Someone's writing to me. I want someone to be able to bring to me why these resources would be useful, why I should hire them, even though they're not hiring it for the slot that I would normally look for those technologies. I'm not sure how, from a marketing standpoint, how do they sell themselves to me so I can realize that value in my company and give them the value, the kind of position that they want.
Yeah. So this wouldn't be, again, this isn't sort of right down the strike zone in terms of what they're looking for. It's the tools that they bring to communicate with a mass audience, to communicate with their fellow workers, to bring information to the table that when their manager asks them to do something, they know how to find the information. So it's like, to me, it's like their writing skills, their communication skills, their teamwork skills. These are just more skills for taking advantage of the resources around them. Right? So they'll say, I'm looking for a marketing position. I've had a marketing internship. I've worked on this kind of project before doing these things. And they say, oh, by the way, we used Twitter when we were getting the word out, whatever it might be. It's just another skill.
Okay, well, I think your students are missing an opportunity to sell.
Okay.
Because someone who gave the lecture that you just did, they say, that's somebody I want to hire. If they kind of leave that off and say it's just to decide, I miss it. The challenge for them is how to bring that information to without diluting their brand.
We have a really ironic. We have students who are pretty conservative. A lot of them come from either automotive background or we have this huge East Coast New York contingent in terms of just strict finance. That's who they are. And so we don't have a big West Coast technology, IT, venture capital kind of group. There's some there, definitely. There's some there in that area. So we tend to not have a lot of recruiting for this kind of position. We have personal searches where people go out and look for these kind of positions, but we're less technical. But no, great feedback. Great feedback. Yes.
All right, well, this might be a little disconnect with, some of the investment banking or managerial consulting that a lot of students seem to go into, but I come from the entrepreneurial world. And
Yeah.
the kids, or the companies that are hiring, what they're looking for, they are people who really can hit the ground running.
Yes.
And it's not at the strategic level, really, but it's being able to start implement programs, on the ground. So, while it seems like the action-based learning component that you have there is very helpful, I would encourage you to have even more for in that case. Have more with some of the kids over at Tech Iron, the engineering students who are coming up with products,
Yep.
and actually trying to start launching your
Yep.
products. Things like that I think would be invaluable. If they had that on a resume, that would go a long way.
Len, could I have you talk for just a minute about?
Yeah, I teach the undergrad business plan course where we work with, I bring in ideas from the community as well as the students' own ideas. We try to give them that skill sets around business development so that they're more prepared for that first job in a startup company because they've lived some of them.
Yeah, and it's not just the development of the plan, because we all know that, any plan, doesn't survive the first encounter with the enemy, right? But it's actually going out there and doing it.
Right. But it's taught as a real-world course. We bring in judges from the outside, they pitch their ideas. There's a lot of speakers involved as well, so we're trying to do more of that development, skill set development.
To kind of echo what Claire said, so we worked with about 1,000 companies in the entrepreneurial tech space, and over the years, I've helped a lot of them recruit. And in theory, yes, it's great to get a U of M business school grad to work in a company. In reality, in the interviews, they say, I would say, I want to do strategy. And it's sort of a joke in the entrepreneurial sector. Who wants to do your startup, getting the grant, because they'll do whatever it takes. They'll do the work, they'll get their hands dirty. They'll help you rebuild the machine, handle the work of the business piece. You have to send out your Twitter messages and whatever else you need them to do to get the company up and moving. That said, I've worked with a lot of great U of M students as well, really ambitious. They're eager to have to make something happen at a tech company, but they seem to be the exception rather than the rule. And is there something, posing this, is there something that we can do at the state and at the state level to help facilitate more of a matchup, to provide you really strong case studies at a particular level? What can we do to help?
Just first, two thoughts. Projects are always welcome. So just communicate with basically our math office where they sort of the hub of gathering projects from the surrounding area that we can have our students work on. Second is internships are an amazing opportunity for these kids to actually come face to face with you people, and then when you hire them for real at 75% more than they were just paid for that cheap summer internship, then
that would probably be zero for most companies.
and they would take it. No, and they would take that though.
75% is zero.
Okay, but still, there's lots and lots of juniors who don't get really good summer internships. So just because you're not going to pay much, that doesn't rule you out in any way, shape, or form. Come up around March, and their eyes are like, please God, yes.
The other sort of interesting, I just thought about, you said you spent all that time on all these case studies, wonderful. But, MEDC has a whole lot of portfolio companies, and they have a lot of information on people, which I'm sure would make wonderful course, studies, and would sort of highlight Michigan and why it's good for them to stay here in Michigan.
I think it's hard for us to hear on this side. I think we're missing the dialogue. So.
I'm sorry, I'm shy.
I'm sorry. Maybe people need to stand when we speak because I can see people standing and not hearing on this side.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you said that you teach people how to search, essentially. How can I find it the most efficient way? Do you focus a lot? What I want to know is it too dorky, so to speak, to expect students to understand search operators and to know, to filter by day? That's my biggest issue is, let's say I say, what's a new way to clean a car? Is there a new kind of rag? I'll have someone with all the great credentials go write a new kind of rag, and there'll be 10 lanes listed for 2006. So I try to, teach the basics of here is the day, using common sense. I don't care if you're using Twitter, Google, Facebook. Understand the basics when you're doing research, to input different keyword entries. So I'm trying to tiptoe the line of saying it's not tech. This is, a skill you want business people to have. If you can elaborate on that, let me know what I should.
There's not a student, I think, who's come into my class, how can I find it, who knows that kind of thing. They just say exactly what you said, they phrase the question and hit
I
enter.
think the research is over if they don't
Yes.
see it in the first 3 lines. And I try to teach, put in different, make more. So that's what I'm wondering, is what to expect from
That's what I do, and the common sense, no.
That's what I was wondering.
No.
I'd like to hear about this also from the new hire, so because I get feedback from a lot of people of what do you guys need? I think this is what Howard was speaking to, that what they're learning Howard needs, but it may not be that they know that's that's kind of what you're saying. That's your need, but they may not know that's what they're marketing. So what other things do you need? Tricia, I bet you must get a ton of people coming to you. What do you look for? I know you probably don't have a lot of space to hire, but
obviously our industry has changed, so our needs are changing all the time, but in publishing in general, no one has identified a way to monetize digital publication in a way that even compares to revenue-related print publication. So any young intern has ideas in that area. It would help not only our small business, but publishing nationally, internationally. So no one has really identified that. So we're looking for bright young minds to come up with ideas related to the publishing industry and monetizing the communication.
do you do industry, might you have a case study on an industry? For example, the great question Patricia posed. In one class we focus, one semester we cover about 20 different industries, but we don't ever go in depth really into any one. So one day we'll talk about the auto industry, one day we'll talk about the branded fashion goods industry. So when I look around the table, I see, your situation, banking, how fast do they adapt technology? It's all these pretty deep questions in the industries we're trying to follow. And, are students prepared to think that way? I don't know. That would be useful.
They're funny about technology. That's the thing that I've found most strange, is that they're really comfortable with the personal technologies, and then therefore they think they know technology. Well, they don't know how to put together a spreadsheet until they take our killer spreadsheet class that he just finished. And they're good with PowerPoint, but they wouldn't know how to form a database query. Their life depended on it. So they don't understand the importance of it. So that's a continuing thing that we've struggled with, really, for the last 20 years, is how to bring the reality of business to them and have them get it. That it's not just something crazy that faculty are making up. So if I would stress to you, if you're interested in bringing this message, your message, the message of business, the struggles of hitting the ground running, of having a story, of having accomplished something, bringing this to the students, get involved with either faculty or our career development group, just some way to help bring the message of action, essentially, to the students. They for 14 years until we get them, they've heard that being smart is good enough. Well, that's not good enough. You got to have a sort of a predisposal for action, for getting something done. And that's something that they struggle with. Yes?
So one of the key concerns that I have in working with companies is to get them to focus and execute. So with all of this technology that we have, imposing on our businesses every day, and new things that you can bring as tools, how do you get these at any level of experience? Because I deal with it with very mature business people. But I think it's becoming worse. I think we're building a culture of ADD because there's so much coming at us all the time. How do you get them to focus and execute?
Okay, so I have two completely different strategies. So one of them, in this class, this class, I don't allow them to have technology in the room. Just don't. I want them sitting there looking at me. Eyes. I need to see you looking at me. No down, nothing. So there's that. In this class, when I used to teach it in a lab, freaking impossible. They're on Facebook and email the whole time, you know. So it got to the point where it was the activities that I have them do, they either need to be immersive and relevant to their personal situation right now, or they would go off and say, I want to do something of interest to me. So the more I make their assignments, their work, their projects, whatever it is, personally relevant to them, that they want to do it. If I'm just talking, hey, here's the things that we're going to do today in class, blah, 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 lecture. No, they're doing just like you and I would do, which is my same thing of interest.
So how do you balance then, giving them work that is aligned with their passion?
Yeah.
And there's always going to be some component that isn't.
Let them make that decision and have there be negative consequences if they don't make the right one. And have it be clear. I can't live their life for them. Yeah, so I let them pay.
So I assume that this is becoming sort of a key component of, I'm seeing a lot more out there on organizational development and talent management, and this is going to be a key component of it. Supposedly,
it's
that whole
not
discipline.
going to get any better. I'm telling you right now, don't expect it to be better. Yeah, because with YouTube, Twitter, Instamatic,
I mean, it's
there's going to be pictures of everything that you're doing out there.
But when we're working with stage 1 and stage 2 companies that are really trying to achieve that next level, it's like herding cats sometimes to get them to say, don't chase the next shiny best thing. We've got to move forward with these initiatives and we'll get to them. Hold them off. We'll get to them.
It's not getting that better.
Thanks for the number.
I sort of want to go the next step and, not just teach action, not teach just don't go to the next little shiny bright thing, but to consider the context in which you're acting and what you're in with. I love business. I love the way business works, but business has to exist within, but business has to exist within its society and can't just feed off society, it must give back. And that's the thing that I think that, I don't know how you instill that, I don't know how you teach that, but
Don't need to instill it. There's a lot of that in these students today.
and I think it's the most
it.
important thing because context is decisive. If we come from the context of, we're not just here to pay, we're here to give as well, then we build a society that doesn't have some of the problems that are.
The undergrads are very ready to hear that story. They are light years ahead of the students 5 to 10 years ago, just light years ahead of them. If you have that kind of story, they're looking for it actually. That they want to work for businesses that have that kind of message. So that is completely not, sorry, better question. That is not in any way a problem. So they're ready for that. It's just they may not know to look for it here or in this area or in Michigan or whatnot.
Scott, we need to begin to wrap up.
Yep.
I know people people work. Believe it or not, they work.
It's the first time I've worn pants and I don't know how many days. I'm wondering, I had a little summer dress on the other
There's
day.
some more questions, but let me just, can you stick around for a while?
I'm not going anywhere.
And have conversations, so maybe we can take these offline, but I just wanted to give you a chance to give, put one of the things Scott's talking about here into action, and that is, he kept talking about the action idea. So, one of the methods of getting feedback, I think, is what actions, if any, are you going to take based on what you heard today? Is there anything that an action you're going to take or a suggestion maybe to Scott about his teaching or the program that might make difference. So let's we're going to go around the room fast and not ask questions, but just suggest what you might take away. I'm going to call on the esteemed Jimmy there to start. So you have something you want to feedback or an action you want to take, or was it more of a question, Jimmy?
Yeah, just very quickly. We are a small company. We have been in the past we
Small global company.
we kind of shy away from hiring new graduates, but we like to hire people that can hit the ground running.
Yeah.
But in the past few years, we kind of changing our mind because the younger or newly graduates they seem to have a lot of newer ideas or technology that we couldn't. But when they come to interview, we find that they don't really leverage and talk too much. So we find we are always comparing them to our existing people. We say, hey, why do we want to have them? When we have our existing people that have years of experience and can do this kind of things. So a lot of things we talk about, Google Hangout, glossaries, and so on and so forth. We just recently hired an MBA student from our school. She's marketing stuff. She never taught anything.
They tend to take technology, it's implicit in their life. I found that they have a hard time explaining how it's different than what was before. They sort of assume it. It's a funny.
Yeah, but I would encourage them when they come to interview, have emphasis.
They'll tell that story.
Yeah.
You had a comment too, sir?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like in our case here, we will be actively seeking intelligent people with solid background, education in marketing and sales, but with good knowledge in the novelties in the IT areas. Basically, people who are comfortable in using, all these new tools of communication, etc. People who know how to network, people who know how to sell high-end products as well as, common product. So the commonalities of any business school, basically teaching curriculum with the young mind, open to learning, but also willing to contribute by, like you said, their life experience being, part of this environment, which seems to be really a futuristic environment for communication, for spreading the word, for making a case for anything, as well as being able to use the basic business acumen and knowledge, be able to phrase, something, be able to present, have the common knowledge as well, the expressive ability to be able to address people. So do we come to you? Do we call, etc. to get, again, the best people, the best referral, because any new company has to depend on the quality of the people.
That's a great point about how do the local companies access the talent, how do we get to you, how do we get to the student.
Internships is a great way because they're cheap, and they also then, it's a 3-month-long interview where they get to find out how interesting it is to work for you, as well as you get to find out how good they are. So that I highly recommend that.
Other takeaways, actions that people have thought about that they're going to do. Which part of what Scott had to say resonated most, Roger?
Well, I think one of the things is continuing education, because things are changing so fast. You have to have a way to keep up. Now, I know you're doing some online video.
Yep.
The U of M's going to be more toward that, kind of like going toward the Khan Academy and the MIT models.
Or
and things
Sarah,
like that.
yeah, that's their big move recently.
Yeah, so I think that's the future, is that you have to keep up with everything, and you integrate what makes sense into your own organization.
Yeah, there's a lot out there now these days.
Any others? Scan the room here, guys. Takeaways?
I guess a general point to make is I would prefer to read the answers and how a student presents themselves. I love how open this test is. I like the fact that you give them a lot of flexibility. So regardless if the point they made was incorrect or not how you were thinking, the way they present themselves is far more important. I'd rather read the answers to this test in judging a potential hire than looking at a resume that they've had combed over by 10 strategic advisors, fixed here and there, listed their skill set as everything imaginable that they've looked at for 10 seconds. I'd really like to look. I just thought, for my, I love how open this is. I don't know if that's the norm.
Might be interesting to present, let's say you present this to actually give us an answer, give us some examples of what they wrote.
Yeah.
Any others, wrap ups, takeaways? Yep.
Just really quick, from working with small and mid-sized business over the years, just the things that I found is that to really stress that internship point to your students and how important that is, because I don't know how many times I've heard from different small businesses that they bring recent graduates in or even interns, and they come in and they have all this great knowledge and all this great education behind them, and then they don't know how to work a fax machine. Or, just very simple, basic business office things that if you don't ever get out there in the real world, you don't know. So I would just really stress that, because that seems to be a frustration for many.
Well, they're always looking. They're always looking for internships, and if you go to our career development, they will point you in the right career development.
There's also the whole area of things your mother should have taught you about first grade that some people don't know. I mean, I went to hire somebody from U of M, and this young lady came in wearing like stiletto heels, black cocktail dress, and I thought right away this is not going to work out well for her. Yeah. So, but I mean, basic. And the other thing, Brad and Stephanie, and I don't guess the other people, we're in a group of emerging leaders, and one of the things that comes out there is the politics that people are not prepared for. And I would recommend you use as a textbook the Steve Jobs book, because it talks about what a brilliant asshole that guy was, what you had to put up with to work for him, and how cutthroat it was. And to me, that's a really good introduction to students, because they're very naive about, because I'm the smartest guy and maybe from a wealthy family or whatever, that I can go run my game, and they cannot. I mean, they're facing things that they've never faced before.
Yep.
So, that would be a good textbook. Any other takeaways?
My observation is just, again, I'm very focused on strategic execution, very focused execution, and setting certain milestones. And I think that window of setting objectives and evaluation is short. And so we've got to get that cycle more repetitive inside of organizations, where it used to be annual to now quarterly to now perhaps
lean startup. It's daily.
Every 30 days, and really making sure that people stay focused on, they'll recognize the change that has to happen to keep those objectives moving forward. And because they're going to have a lot of new ideas that come in, and they're going to say, what about? You've got to have a quick way to assess, okay, what about? Yes, no, go forward.
Not go to the new shiny.
And not go to the new shiny thing.
I think this is great. I think where you guys have come in the past 20-some years since I was there is miles. I mean, the difference is amazing to see kids coming out of high school and taking obviously we're putting a critical lens on it, but at the same time to have the real life experience. I know even when we've gone to the bank to have some of the teams come in, see what they're doing and get that experience. And the value they're able to add with having not a lot of experience already, just that critical thinking piece of it is great. So thank you, Tim.
I also, I don't know, Michael, you would agree with this, but I think I call it mensch training. How to be, how to be a mensch. Keep the kids that work with Hillel, deliver chicken soup to sick kids. How do you teach people? Because a lot of getting ahead in the workplace is being a mensch. It's being, doing the right thing for people, showing up, helping out. It's not about how smart you are, but it's about the quality of your relationships. And sometimes I worry that, I don't know, maybe you can comment, how much real world training do you feel that you got as an undergrad to help you really fit into a workplace? And we'll give you the last word as the graduate.
So we're talking, I did an internship every summer in college, when I was 16, was able to experience action living as well as more kind of holistic entrepreneurship type study. But I feel that I speak for all college students and recent grads when I say when we're looking for jobs to work for you, while I agree that it's important to be able to hit the ground running, a lot of companies, say at least 1 to 2, if not 3 to 5 years of experience. So we don't quite know what that means, and I would challenge every leader here to continue specifying and focusing exactly what you're looking for, because we definitely, especially as graduates, want the jobs, but the unpaid internships now that we've graduated we don't have the bandwidth to do it. So there's 3 to 5 years of experience, balancing that and wanting to hit the ground running with kind of really getting specific on who you're looking for, what skills, what positions. So it's a challenge for both, but I think really getting clear on that is necessary, especially today. So that's what I present.
Okay, we're going to wrap up. I want to give Scott an applause. It's a great program, and I like the fact that you're out talking about it, trying to learn what's right, bringing in the changes. I mean, Jim's talking about the great changes in the 20 years, and I think it's a real good credit. And Scott's also, he's kind of humble, but he's a really expert in the whole area of technology. I mean, if you guys are wanting to learn some of the things that he's talking about with keeping up with some of those things on the bottom of the list, buy Scott a cup of coffee. He can tell you how to solve a lot of your problems. And he might not charge you, you don't have to pay for a whole year of working for someone. He'll tell you over coffee, you take notes fast. Right?
Expensive cup of coffee.
Latte, right? Yeah. But it is really incredible. I went to one of his blogs on weight management and the low-carb diet, and he just knows how to put together a knowledge base that you can really learn from. And I think a lot of the companies could learn just from that skill of how do you put together. What do you call that? It's not really a wiki, is it? It's what would you call what you put together? It's just a page of knowledge.
Yeah, it's just gathering resources. That's all.
Yeah.
Organizing resources.
So, yeah.
Just a quick question. Do you ever allow business owners, leaders to come in and audit any of your classes or visit?
The school doesn't. If there's some reason or other that you want to come in and sit in on a class or two, I'll always let you do that. For my this class, this How Can I Find It? That's mostly going to be online anyway. So I won't grade your work, but you can see the lectures and stuff. Yep.
No, Scott, you want to say, and you're looking for a big donation.
Scott,
I'm all right.
Yeah, the right answer is yes, you can come in, but you have to buy a skybox in my class. All right, well, we'll see you all in September. If anybody's interested in participating in one of these CEO circles, let me know, or if you need some coaching, let me know about that. And we'll get the program out for you hopefully next month or next year. Take care.
And I'll help you with that.